Well, what did you think of Donald Trump's speech on the weekend, Joe?
I thought it was terrific. Look, he had trouble after the midterms. He had trouble explaining what the hell he was doing, and even Biden had trouble explaining how he won. So let's just set that aside. He came back pretty well. He got a straw vote at the conservative pact thing there. He got 62% of the vote. He swept everybody aside. But what I liked about his speech is he said, if you want retribution, that is, if you want to go back to Washington, want me to go back to Washington and take care of your enemies. And he threw his enemies under the bus. Karl Rove, Jeb Bush, the Republican Party's attitude towards open borders in the past, globalization, neocons. Pete, he's got his own version of what the gang's going to look like next time around. He looks pretty good. And a couple of weeks ago, I thought that DeSantis would be able to maybe knock him off in a primary, because that's what the polls showed. But I think Trump's come back pretty well. And you know what? He's had this taste for power, and I think he's moderated his tone a little bit. That is, he appeals to extreme views. But on the other hand, he looks a little calmer than he used to. Maybe he's taking.
So do you think it comes down to Trump and DeSantis? I mean, DeSantis wasn't there on the weekend. He chose to stay away from it. But does it come down to Trump and DeSantis in the end in terms of a two-horse Republican race? Or, do you give Nikki Haley any chance whatsoever, or is she going to be the first domino to fall?
Well, Nikki Haley would be something like 20-1 at the Melbourne Cup. I think DeSantis is about 9-1, and Trump would be 3-1. Look, Trump's going to win the primary. Whether he can win the general, I don't know. I think maybe he can. Americans they're in a fighting mood right now. They're not doing as well as President Biden tells them they are, and it looks like he's reaching out to special interest groups and not paying attention to a lot of people, Pete. Keep in mind, he'd rather go to Kiev in a war rather than go to Ohio to explain to people what happened to a train.
That's true.
Shows you he's a little afraid of public opinion too.
Yeah. Hey, how are you going in Perth, Joe?
Well, pretty well. It's a beautiful city. I like to regard it as the Los Angeles of Australia, and I can't understand why there aren't more people here, Pete.
No, it is beautiful, no doubt about that. Have you got yourself a new football team, or are you still rusted on to whoever you supported in Melbourne? I can't even remember who that was.
Well,
Joe.
I liked Carlton, Melbourne. Of course, I never gave up on the Brisbane Broncos after years in Brisbane. So, I got to find a new team out here, or I'll be unliked very quickly. So I'll find something.
Well, I mean, there's two Brisbane teams are now doing well. There's an amazing first round from the Dolphins there too, so we can't forget about them now. They've factored themselves into the conversation. I didn't know you spent time in Brisbane. There you go, Joe. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes. Okay, bye-bye.